Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Patty. I go by Pattymac Makes everywhere online. In today's video, I'm going to talk with you about how to make this heart quilt block, I should say. If you Google heart block, you don't get quilt squares, let me just tell you. This particular quilt block is the second block that is featured in my new lap quilt pattern that is called the Power of Three. I call it the Power of Three because what we're doing is picking three colors using our color wheel to go together into our quilt top, our quilt designs that we're doing. And I picked red, yellow, and blue, and then a white for my background. This particular block doesn't have a whole lot of added yellow in it, but there is yellow in the red print, and it's a very warm red. It's almost an orange, but it is a red. For Valentine's Day, I made a very similar heart for a table runner pattern, and I just liked it so much I wanted to use it also in this new lap quilt. If you're interested in making the whole quilt, I can link to the information on that below, but you don't have to make the whole quilt in order to enjoy making this particular block into any number of projects that you would like to make. This block is a 12.5-inch square block, and it's composed of 4 quadrants. And even though this looks really simple, and it's a lot of little pieces. So let me tell you what goes into this. To make this block as shown, you will need to cut from the blue one 6.5-inch square and one 7.5-inch square. From the red, you will need to cut one 6.5-inch square and one 7.5-inch square, and you will need 2 3.5-inch squares. From the white, which is your background, you will need to cut 2 2.5-inch squares, 2 3.5-inch squares, and 2 7.5-inch squares. The reason that you have the same block cut an inch in size different is because you're going to take the larger block and make that into a half square triangle by pairing the print with the background. And so what you're going to wind up having is 2 half square triangles when you're done of this one and 2 of this. So you're going to wind up with that either as an extra or a good start on your next heart. When I make half square triangles, I always overcut the blocks that I'm going to use to sew those HSTs. I cut them a full inch larger. I piece my HSTs at 2 HSTs at a time, so 2 from one block, and I trim them down to size. So I will take the 7.5-inch, I'll make the full-sized half square triangle, and then I'm going to trim it to 6.5 so that this will match this. So, okay, let's jump in and see exactly how we're going to piece this particular heart. I've got all the pieces laid out for that block, and honest to goodness, it is a lot of pieces. It looks like such a simple block, and it is, but gosh, it takes a lot of just little bitty pieces to construct the whole thing, but it does go together pretty fast. So I would say the first thing we'll do is let's make our half square triangles. Let's get those set up. And the way that's going to go together is we'll take our larger 7.5-inch squares and right sides together. And then what I will do is mark my sew lines and take that over to my machine and go ahead and do the sewing, the pressing, and the trimming. And I will just do that off camera. I'm not going to run through making the half square triangles in today's video. I'm just going to assume that you know how to do that, or if you need extra help with that, then I will refer you to the other videos that I have on that. But I will show you how to do the top of the heart. So we have a red half and a blue half, and we're just going to lay those out. And then what we're going to do is take the small 2.5 inch white or background fabric, and we're just going to put that into that upper corner. And then we're going to do the same thing here. So you want this as a mirror image. And then we'll take the 3.5 and we'll put that along the outer and then here. And then what we'll do is we're going to mark the sewing lines. Okay, we'll mark the sewing lines. I lightened that up a little bit for you. Let me move this one out of the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew from this corner to that corner and this corner to that corner. And I'm going to mark that so that I have a good clear line so I know exactly where to sew. And you want to make sure that your squares are lined up really well with that edge. And then I'll just draw my sewing line right onto the fabric. And then we'll do the same thing here. Okay, and then you want to make sure that's secure. So make sure that you pin on the inside and the outside. You can clip the outside, to be honest. Just something to hold it in place. That's what you want. But I like to pin on the inside. Okay. And we'll do the blue. So your line is going to be from the inside of the heart at the high point and then down to the outer. So the inner is high, the outer is low. Let's see if that makes sense. Okay. And then we'll just clip that to secure. Okay, so I'm going to head over to the sewing machine, and what I'm going to do is to sew on that line on both of these, and then I'm going to construct my half square triangle units. I'm going to construct them and trim them so they're ready to go, and then I will be right back with you. Alright, I've got everything secured so I can remove the clips. And then we'll take out the pins. And here's what I want you to see. We're going to trim, but what we're going to wind up doing is trimming and then pressing that back. And that will make our complete square. So I wind up using, I have this little triangle ruler. This is not what it's designed for, but it's how I use it. It's just so easy for me to handle, and it has this great 1/4 inch line so that I can always get my accurate seam allowance when I'm trimming. And that's how I use it. I'll link it below in case you are interested in adding that to your collection. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the iron and press these back. and then I'll be right back and we'll take a look at it. And I will, let me just say this. So the little trimmings, I wind up saving these, and I will take them over to the sewing machine and just go ahead and sew them on the bias and keep these as little tiny, small half square triangles. And I've just got a collection of these and other little square trimmings, and I don't know what I'm doing with them, but they're too good to just toss out, so I'm saving them. Okay, let me press and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back and I have pressed these open. So I've just pressed them back, and you can see the seams, and they can go this way. You can also, if you want a big dip in the middle, you can do your heart like that. That's another option, but I always do the little dip in the middle, personally. Okay, so that's the top of our heart. And then to set up the bottom of our heart, we'll bring in this, and we'll bring in this. Okay. Now the way I've got it designed is that there's another little bit down here. You can forego that if you want to, but I'm going to go ahead and put it on. And it's the same thing that we did up here. So I'm going to just line this up, and then I'll draw my line and sew it. In this case, the line will be parallel. Oops. Hold on, that wasn't quite right. This red fabric is it's a little bit on the cheap side, and it's been a slight challenge to work with. So, you know, when you buy cheap fabric, you get what you pay for. So that's just how it is. But sometimes, you know, we can't all have every project be with the good stuff, right? I mean, sometimes. All right, my line is parallel. Pin and clip. All right, I'm going to go to the sewing machine, and then for both of these, I will sew on that line and trim it, press it, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and you can see that I've got that little corner piece onto both of the lower units. And the next thing is to just finish putting the block together. So what I'm going to do is to put those two together, and then I'll do those two. And when I've got the two halves, and then we'll just come back and put them all together. So, I mean, basically this is a 4-patch. It's just kind of a fancy 4-patch because you've got, you know, these extra things going on, but it's still basically the same construction idea. What I will tell you is when you're putting these together at this point, so we've got it here, and then we've got it again here. And what we want to do is when we go right sides together, we want to make sure that those, the seams here, at this point, line up just so. And that will give us our best looking center point, and same thing here. So that's where you're going to want to be really careful, is where you line those together. Now, one thing that you can do is you can press your seams in opposite directions, and then they'll nest. So I could go back to the machine and just, or excuse me, the iron, and just press that going that way, and then I would have a nested seam. So maybe I'll do that. And then I'll just pin and put it together. And when I get both of these halves together, I'll just meet you back here and show you what it looks like. Our two halves are sewn, and you can see when you do the nested seams, the points really do go together beautifully. This one's going that way, the center seam is going that way. And that really did make a beautiful difference in the way everything went together. Okay, so the last thing is just to put these right sides together. I'm going to line it up along that center seam, and everything will nest, and I'll pin there, and then I'll pin out to my edges and get everything lined up and sew it and press it, and I'll be back and show you the final result, which I think is beautiful. I can't wait to see it. And here's our completed block, and it's a 12.5-inch square block. I will show you the back. So you can see that I did wind up pressing open my center seams, and I did that so that I am sure to catch the points. It is a little bit of an issue here on the bottom one, because that's also got the points that I'll need to be mindful of when it comes time to sew it together, but I'll just worry about that when it's time to put the sash on. But for right now, this is all done, and I'm super happy with it. It goes together really fast. It's just a lot of cutting of little pieces. So you've got to cut all these little tiny pieces to go on, but you know, it looks so cool when you're done. I think it's worth it. That is the quilt block for row number 2 in the shape of a heart that goes into the Power of 3, which is a row quilt. This is for row number 2. And I hope you'll join us and make one of these for yourself. It's a really great skill building quilt if you've been making blocks and you're having some fun with this. This particular row quilt will present you with a few challenges, and you'll learn a whole lot, and I hope that you'll jump in and join us, and you can join anytime. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video, and until then, happy quilting, my friends.